Well, hello, hello.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Relationship Cycle with Jorge and Nelsa. Poppy, we have got some very exciting topic conversation to go today with baby mamas and baby daddies.
Yeah, I think this is a topic that we probably should have covered a long time ago, but it just got me thinking one day. I was like, you know what? I don't think we've kind of dug in too deep into this. So let's just say that a lot of people had a lot of opinions on this. So I'm looking forward to chopping this up and kind of really dissecting the different aspects and the different ways that this affects your dating life and your relationships.
Well, let's jump right on in. Our listeners always good to give us some feedback on Facebook, post our questions to them. Um, how have you been affected as someone who doesn't have children? We've talked about this on the show. Um, how does it impact you when maybe someone you're dating has children?
All right. So, first and foremost, right, as a man, if I decide to pursue a woman, that has children, I always, try to keep that in the back of my mind that, hey, her family and her children are going to be priority. At least, early on, you're not even going to be on that radar. So it's
Mhm.
important from a man's perspective, right? And even a woman, right? If you're dating a man that maybe has the kids majority of the time, that you have to be aware that, hey, there are higher priorities for this person.
Mhm.
And there's going to be times where she's going to be put in a situation where she has to do what's best for her kids and for her family. So, I like to put that out there up front, but at the same time, that still does not excuse lack of communication or no communication when it comes to situations where a family member or a child or, scenario with, a baby father, baby mama, where you get left in the dark and then you get blindsided by something.
Yeah. You know, it's one of those things that I was really fortunate my in my selection of a dad for my children. He was my husband, and when we got divorced, he has been, a step up dad. Like, we sometimes have had minor differences of opinion about some things, of course, as anybody does, and we did that when we were still, married. But I can really honestly say I've been very blessed that we've been able to co-parent. And, it hasn't been a problem for me or for him with me being his, the mother of his children when he has moved on. In fact, his current girlfriend and I get along great, and she's been really good with my children. So I feel like we've sort of got an anomaly when you see some of the things that go on about how people act and carry on over the children. One of the listeners wrote on our Facebook post, Catherine Madeline M. Was talking about how her children's father, they had always been able to put aside their differences and truly become family. Like she said, he's like a brother to her at this point. They get along better now than when they dated. They can talk. They have family get-togethers to celebrate their daughter. Um, and that's the thing with me and my ex, that we were able to keep that bind as a team to work with our children. And one of the things that she said that I really agreed with was how a lot of women will get bitter or upset about how the man behaved, whether he left, cheated, hit it, or quit it, and then use the children as a pawn. And so I really totally agree with that, because you don't want your children to not have a relationship with their father because you can't be in relationship with him anymore the same way. And I think
No,
children often suffer. And that's really, to me, what the core of this topic was, how children suffer because either one parent hasn't moved on or the other one moved on and somebody else didn't. And then the kids become, the ones who get lost in the middle. But she went on to say, who cares that he didn't want you, cheated on you, whatever. That has nothing to do with his relationship with the children. And if you have multiple baby daddies, please don't expect that the one that actually stepped up to take care of the rest. if you use the children to get what you want from the man, sex, time, etc., those kids will resent you. Don't be that chick. And to all, please stop sleeping around for all of you in the streets out here. Look, unprotected. She says it a different way. I won't say it the way she said it. She kind of gave a little PSA about, take care of yourselves, because having a kid with somebody, once the kid is here, it's no longer about you and your feelings. Grow up and be responsible and stop making statistics and raise our babies as grown folks. And I think that's really, it was really the first comment, but really kind of summed up some stuff. Like, children are not baby dolls. Children are not uh, negotiation tools, to get somebody to get back in relationship with you, or to get somebody back for what they've done to you, to try to hurt them through their kids. And sometimes I have really seen that where um, women will try to keep the kids from their dads, or I've seen dads who, because of the way the women act, refuse to do anything extra for the kids and don't come see them or anything because they don't want to deal with the mom. And so either way, it's still wrong because the kids are the ones who are suffering. So
No,
I just want to
no,
throw that out there.
I agree, and I think she made a lot of strong points and a lot of things that definitely do take place in the middle of that melee when it comes to the back and forth stuff. And I think it's important to highlight that when you hold on to all that negative energy, that resentment, those grudges, all that comes with that, or, those sensations of, betrayal, or, somebody, feeling used because somebody just showed up in their life and they were in and out. At the end of the day, that negative energy is never a good thing, in my opinion,
Hmm.
for multiple reasons, right? And then on top of that, it's the children that are the ones that get caught up in the crossfire, and then they're the ones that kind of get used as pawns, or they're the ones that end up being the collateral damage for the beef and the back and forth squabbles.
Exactly. Um, And I think too, when you move forward, like I think a lot of people are always amazed when I say how much I really do care about my ex and his new girlfriend. Um, you know, was there healing that I had to do? Absolutely. Has he had to do some healing? Absolutely. But just because we didn't work as a couple doesn't mean that it needs to stay unhealthy. Because, like you said, not even about our children, but about us inside ourselves. Like, you're carrying around that baggage, you're carrying around that animosity, and it's going to spill over into any new relationships that you're trying to cultivate for yourself. Um, I dated for quite a while and really didn't understand how much I had not released pain of the past. And so it was impacting my dating relationship. And I think that's the other thing that we have to do. Like, once you have created a family with somebody, whether you remain in relationship as husband, wife, boyfriend, girlfriend, whatever, you are still really technically family, because you and that person created a bond that is going to live through your children. Like I always say, we're going to have grandchildren together one day. Like, if my girls come home with, children of their own, families of their own, like, we're going to have weddings to go to together. We're going to have baby christenings to go to together. Like, you're never really not bound once you have children with someone. And I think from that perspective, it really does. You need to get to a place where you can look at that person and feel good about them. Now, on the flip side of all this, I have a friend who um has, a child, and the child really needed more time and attention, and her man really couldn't understand that. And it was almost like the the mate wanted to compete, and you can't. Like, in my opinion, you've got to go ahead and own that children are going to take priority. Now, that doesn't mean that they get to tell you who you're dating is, trash, and mama, we don't want you dating him. We want you to get back with daddy. I'm not talking about that kind of manipulation, but I'm talking about, when my kids have needs, whoever I'm dating is gonna have to know. Like, even if my kids beep in when I'm talking on the phone, I'll say, "Listen, this is one of my kids. I gotta grab this. I'll get back right with you." And same, for who I'm dating. Like, if they've got kids, I expect that even if their kids are older, there might be something that's a real emergency. And so I need to make sure that they're okay. Yeah, check on your kids because I'm going to check on mine. So when I'm dating now, that's always a thing that I've got to make sure that people understand. Do you get that I have children, and are you okay knowing that sometimes you're not going to be first priority?
No, and I agree. And I think that's something that, as a man, right, or even a woman,
Yeah.
you have to be aware. And I've had women ask me, have you dated women with kids before? Because they want to know and they want to see that, hey, I'm going to understand that, hey, if something comes up and it has to do with the family and kids, then you already know what it is, which makes
Yeah.
sense to me. I mean, coming from a Latino home and a Latino background upbringing, family is very important to us,
Hmm.
and it is something that we, take our pride as far as from a cultural aspect of being close and being tight knit. So I
Right.
completely understand that. Now, I will say this, a personal experience that I had with the last girlfriend that I had is that, um, I noticed that the more information she started sharing with baby daddy,
Right.
the more issues that he started to come up with so that he wouldn't fulfill his responsibilities when it was time for him to care for the child.
So that's what I was going to ask next. Like, dealing with somebody who is the parent of the child of the person you're dating. Um, and that can be tricky because and this is where I feel like, based on who moved on first, or if the other person has or has not moved on, it can get dicey because sometimes it's a point of pride. It's not that they still want the mama or daddy. It's just, I didn't want you to move on before I did.
Agreed. Oh,
Petty. It's
absolutely.
petty.
Pettiness, pettiness. Listen, we all have a little bit of pettiness in us. Some of it is dangerous. Some of it is innocent. Like I'll give you the scenario. So I remember that, when we started, dating, she had mentioned that she had never been to Asheville. So
Hmm.
I was like, all right, this seems like a perfect opportunity to show you what Asheville is about because I've been several times and it's a
Hmm.
pretty cool spot to check out, especially
Is. I
for a
love
week.
Asheville.
Yeah, for a weekend getaway, it's awesome. So
Mhm.
anyways, long story short, I made reservations. I, booked the hotel for 3 days. We had already planned this out a few weeks in advance. And I noticed that in the communication, she was telling baby daddy that she was going to go out of town and that, she needed to make sure that he was going to hold his end of the deal as far as picking up his son
Mhm.
for the weekend that he's responsible for because they would do like on and off, alternate, every
Mhm.
other weekend
Mhm.
kind of thing. And I had concerns about that because I know that he would always try to make it difficult and make it very hard on her. And basically, he would do whatever he could to make her life miserable, especially when she knew that she was going to be enjoying herself or trying to do something
Mhm.
fun. And obviously, it doesn't take a genius to figure out that, hey, if you're going out of town and you're not saying girlfriends or
Mhm.
girls trip, then that only leaves one other scenario.
Right.
And if it was
Yeah.
a family function, then she would have taken the child, obviously. So she probably gave him a little bit too much information. So with that being
Mhm.
said, literally the night before that we were basically getting everything ready, we were going to be heading out Saturday morning to get to the hotel. And literally that night before Saturday morning, he lets her know that he was sick and that he was going to be late for Saturday to pick up her son. So obviously that messed up the whole trip. He was unable to come, and I was out 3 days of a hotel. So, needless to say, not a great experience.
Mhm.
But I also had a conversation with her that, look, like you have to understand that this man is still holding grudges and remorse over what happened between the breakup, and she was the one that broke up with him.
Oh, he wasn't ready to let go. Hmm.
Oh, I mean, he saw the writing on the wall that obviously if you're going to be away all weekend and you're not going to be local and you're traveling, then he knew that, hey, I'm going to make this as annoying as possible for you. And he sure as hell did. And yeah, the one that got left holding the bag was me because I couldn't get my money back and we didn't get to go to the mountains. So needless to say, me personally, uh, from my ex-wife's perspective, whenever she asks me anything personal about my life or even dating life, I tell her straight up, hey, look, that is none of your concern anymore. And that is not part of the conversation that we are having right now. So
Hmm.
you do not need to be asking me those kind of questions. And I also don't, give her all those details and information because it's no longer part of her concern at this point.
Right, right. But I get somebody being concerned about who's seeing and who's in my kid's life, right? But that does not mean that you can't still have a life, you know, without your kids, having to meet a new person or whatever. But Michaela Cheyenne says in hers, well, in my case, it has impacted me taking a next step or getting serious with someone else because my baby daddy says he doesn't want anyone holding his son or to have a stepdad. He doesn't even want to come to his son's birthday party to avoid problems if he sees someone else holding his son. It's tiring because I just want to co-parent and us be there for our son without problems, or me feeling guilty if he decides to step out of his life because I chose to start seeing someone else. So it sounds like this person is holding her hostage and not allowing her to move forward because he's making all these excuses about why he can't do something. And to me, that sounds like just really you're making an excuse to not be a parent because there are numerous ways. Like if you don't want to see her uh moving on at the birthday party, throw one yourself. Like he's got one this day and then he's got one tomorrow, or you got it the first 2 hours, we're going to do it the last 2 hours. If you really want to be a part of your kid's life and not just because you want to be a blocker, you can make the the effort. And to me, it sounds like in this situation, we don't have everything, all the details, of course, but just the way she's written it, it sounds like he doesn't want to see her move forward, not I don't want to see somebody else moving forward with you and my son because grown people, a decent person is going to know, yeah, we're going to have moments where we're going to have to all be in the scene together for the sake of the children. We're going to act right and do what we need to do if we're mature enough. But when you're not, you don't have that level of maturity yet. I think in your response, uh, basically, he's willing to miss important life events and family time because of his ego and pettiness. And that is wild. I
Oh,
agree
that absolutely.
on
That's 100% what it is. And to be fair, right? Me personally, if I see that there is a lot of tension or
yeah.
a lot of stressful, chaotic situations or dynamics between the baby daddy or baby mamas or whatnot, to me that's a big turnoff and a big red flag early on, in my opinion.
Yes.
And it could definitely scare you off where you might be interested in somebody, but once you see how volatile that situation is, it can definitely push you away from a woman, and at least in the case of a man. And I've heard plenty of women who have also mentioned who, with men that have multiple baby mamas or multiple children all over the place, that's not an ideal situation for a new woman to step in as well.
Right, right. And from that perspective, I can't speak to that, but just from hearsay and what I've seen. But sometimes there is that issue of um there are people out there who love to create triangles and tension. You got a baby Miss Mama who is, still into you. You're trying to move forward, but you keep throwing them together, knowing that this woman is gonna have an issue with this new woman. And it's like, let's see how the drama plays out. And to me, again, that's an ego slash maturity issue when you're setting the new person up for failure. Like, you notice this chick is gonna come over here and want to scratch her car up and
Oh
confront
my
her and
God.
want to follow her home, and like, don't put somebody in that position. Like, if your situation has not bookended, you don't have a 50B, and mama needs to pick up the kid at the grandma's house and all that stuff. Quit messing and being messy. That's messy, you know? So,
I I will say this too, Nelsa, to kind of add more to this conversation. Um, to me, I think it's important to understand your partner too, right? Whoever you have children with. Is this a person that I'm going to be able to have civil conversations to find common ground about how we're going to co-parent? And if he or she is not one of those people, then I need to get the legal system involved so that way there is no, red tape, or there is no he said, she said. This is the agreement that we both signed. Here is the legal court order of how
yeah.
we're going to conduct ourselves. And that to me is going to eliminate a lot of headaches if you have someone who is just determined and hell bent on making your life and your dating life and your relationships suffer and crumble just because of pride and pettiness.
And right, and they can't get out of doing what they're supposed to do because they want to torment you if there is a court order. And that really does help make boundaries easier to enforce, especially if you work in a contentious relationship where somebody left and the other person wasn't ready, to move on. uh, most people want to say, I think we can do it without it. Well, in that moment, yeah, because they think they might still have a chance to get you back. But then they start playing games sometimes. I've seen that play out with people where they thought everything was going to be fine and they were going to be able to work together. And then the other person flipped the script on them. And then they didn't have that protection in place to make sure that we both know what the ground rules are for parenting and how we're going to behave moving forward. So for a lot of people, um, you know, you think everything's okay in that first, 28, 48, 24, 48 hours, but it's sort of like having a wreck. You probably still need to go get checked out, just in case,
you
just in
might
case.
still you might still be suffering from some of that whiplash. But no, I agree,
Yeah.
and I think that I think right as a person you want to be self aware and kind of pay close attention and be honest and think about, okay, is this somebody that I'm going to be able to reason with and that I'm going to be able to co-parent with without having to get the legal side of it involved.
Right.
And
Well,
if your answer is no, or you're not sure, then you're probably better off just making it legal so that way there is no he said, she said, or misconfusion, or oh, I can't this weekend,
mhm.
or this weekend is maybe so, maybe not. So that way, hey, this is what we agreed on. This is what we both signed and executed and notarized. So you know what's going on, and whether I go to Cancun or whether I go to Rock Hill, it is none of your concern.
Right. What I'm doing as far as I'm making sure to make a plan for our kid, that's as far as you need to know. Like nothing else is a part of, you don't have that sort of business together anymore. Have you ever experienced um a confrontation with someone's baby's daddy, Poppy, in your dating life? Like that
I
seems to
have
be close to that line, but did you ever have any open confrontation?
I have not. We never formally met. Obviously, I have met her son, but we never got to that point. And then, obviously, after that scenario, that definitely. And to be fair, I was very naive as it related to that because that was really my first experience of seriously being with a woman that had a child. And frankly, even when I was dating prior to that, it never really hit me how important and how much of an effect baby mamas and baby daddies can have in your dating life and in relationships. And then after that experience, then obviously I chimed in and I told her, like, look, like if you're feeding him all the details and all the information, you're just giving him fuel to his fire and you're just giving him ammo to see how he can needle you and make your life miserable. So I told her, hey, you got to be a little bit more vague and keep the cards a little closer to the vest so that way he doesn't try to have all these, reasons and all these details of ruining your plans because you're literally feeding and giving him everything in the whole agenda.
Yeah, exactly. And that kind of it's it's passive aggressive behavior instead of just coming out and saying, "I'm not ready for you to move on and for me to hear about it. Please stop telling me the details of everything," because that's not what he's going to do. He wants to know the details so he can, ambush it, and you feel like you got no other option but to go back or be by yourself. Michaela Cheyenne followed up and said that she had also dealt with a toxic baby mama stealing pics of hers and posting about her when she started dating her baby daddy and then wouldn't let him see his kids. I had to end that relationship, she says, even though we were doing good because it takes a toll on everything. And I didn't want to be a reason he couldn't see his kids. She goes on to say, y'all just need to learn to let your baby mama and baby daddy be happy. If it didn't work, it didn't work. And that's it. Stop the drama and being toxic. Um, and unfortunately, again, when you have created a whole nother life with a person, there are bonds that are going to be unbreakable. Like you're going to always be connected to that person through your kids. But for some people, it's like they just cannot seem to get over, like, we're no longer together. It's not about us, it's about the children. And I think with dating, like, you really do have to factor, like, um, first of all, do I want somebody who doesn't have children? Because then there will be some freedom to date without a lot of extra. But then I had my own children, so will they understand how it is when you have to be a parent over everything else? So there's such that, back and forth in your mind dating, like which route to take. Like, do I take somebody who doesn't have children, but maybe they want children and I don't? It becomes like we got this whole multi-layer cake that starts ballooning out more and more and more. So I have found though, when I date people who have children and they have a similar situation like mine, like our friend Brian Miller said, I'm going to read his because it was perfect for this. Like, find somebody who's got a similar situation to yours. And his thing was, here it is. If I find out that the baby mama or the baby daddy is dysfunctional, rude, obnoxious, loud, ratchet, or disrespectful, and the two are not civilized and respect each other, I'm out like a blown bulb. LOL.
That was a good one. Brian's always good
Thank you,
for
Brian.
his golden
Always good
nuggets that he drops.
comments. No way will I deal with two grown adults who don't understand how to create an environment for their own children that promoted love and harmony, but would rather promote foolery and nonsense for the children to copy. So Brian put it down. He was like, "I'm out. If you can't get along with your baby mama, your baby daddy, with whichever end of the ticket is, I'm out." So that was me as well. Like, I did not want to be embroiled in some foolishness and nonsense because life is hard enough out here in these streets as it is without having to be yoked up with somebody that has all of that toxic energy following behind them, even though it's maybe not even their fault. But the fact that first of all, you did not use good judgment apparently with somebody who could not be decent and in order when it came to being with your children. So, maybe it's a red flag. I don't know, but you don't want to hold people's past against them because some people don't show crazy or show toxic until after the thing is done. They're fine until you say, I'm ready to move on. And then all of a sudden everything blows up in everybody's face. But, still like being able to know, okay, is this person gonna flip out? And the age of the children does kind of make a difference in that. Sometimes I've seen where, like, if the baby is younger, so that means that the breakup is just fresh, then sometimes you cannot get somebody with young children. Like, you're gonna have to be like with somebody that's had children, and the kids have kids now. Like, they might need to have grandchildren.
No, and
Or
I agree. No, and I agree that the age of the children definitely does play a role in it. In my experience, just, from the dating a baby or dating a woman with kids scenario, I would say that the younger the child, that the more of a focus you have to have on what the parenting and co-parenting dynamics are. Because, like, for example, a situation like yours, where your daughters are what, one's in college, I think you said the other one's in high school or something, or
get ready,
about to be
wait,
graduate.
uh-huh.
To me, I feel like those situations are probably a little bit easier to work out because number one, they don't need babysitters, right? Number
Right.
two, you can actually sit down and have civil conversations with them while with a 4 or 5 year old, and then you're bringing in a brand new woman or a brand new man around this child. They're still too young to reason and understand certain things. And obviously, worst case scenario, if something were to happen to that child, they may not be old enough to realize or to pick up on what is happening because they're so young or they're just so, still a baby or a toddler.
Right, exactly. And again, that can't, that could be a real issue for the other parent, especially like, let's say, maybe it's younger people dating. I just can't imagine this being somebody our age, honestly, but younger daters who just maybe have had children together and have broken up, depending on your judgment, like, I, if, if I knew my ex or to have had my children around somebody who had a real terrible reputation, was a drug user, uh, was somebody who is really was not a woman that I felt like had character, then yeah, I probably would have raised saying about, like you go on and go to on your dates, but don't have my kids around that. So I could see, like, really when it is about the benefit of the children, like even if I oppose the person being around our kids, it has to do with the person's character. If they have a rap sheet, you know what I'm saying? Like, they pose a threat to my kids and you're not seeing that. So that would be something that I would raise saying and be like, they're too young to be around that. I'm sorry. That might be your boo thing, but you don't need to have them around my kids. So, in that case, yeah, I can get that. But just because you moved on dating and the person wants to be at the party, the person is a good person, taking, time with your children, being a good influence. Like, kids need all the love and care they can get from adults. I would not keep a good person away from my kids out of my, ex's life. But somebody that's ratchet, like our boy Brian says, like, you don't have your stuff together, you're not going to contaminate my children with that foolishness.
No,
So,
and I agree. And I think, like we said, right, at the end of the day, the thing that we're trying to hammer is to be aware, right? Because if you're aware, then at least you can kind of be proactive with some of these conversations. And also, from, the other individual, you want to keep that in the back of your mind that, hey, you got 2 or 3 baby mamas or baby daddies that are going to be in play. Is this really something that you're going to be able to handle?
well, you're doing some research because we always love to go out there and see what else is being said about these topics in the world. The gritandgraceproject.org has an article called "You, Your Man, and His Baby Mama All Need Grit and Grace," and it talks about how to be in a relationship with someone who has a baby mama. And one of the points brought up was focus on developing a relationship with the mother separate from the relationship with him, even if it isn't the smoothest one. Approach her and let her know that you are not trying to take over her position. Tell her you recognize that she is the mother first and foremost. So make an ally of the person, because I think, we kind of go around and around sometimes, but what really can we do, or at least attempt to do, to try to make peace so that we can all get along? And that's one of the things that they recommend is, try to develop some sort of relationship where we're going to be in partnership, not competition. And again, sometimes that's difficult if the other person hasn't really let go, if they still see him as the man of their dreams and they're still in love and don't want to see him move ahead. You can try it and it may not work, but at least you've tried to put some goodwill into it. And maybe your partner is going to respect the fact that you're not trying to debo the baby mama in the situation. Like, you don't come in here and just try to be a wrecking ball and try to take over her job as a mother. You don't want to do the hand that rocks the cradle either. You know, I'm going to woo your kids and take your man. And next thing you know, you don't even get a say in what your kids are doing or whatever. So, partner with that person and see if you can at least have conversation with them separate from, the relationship.
No, I agree, and I think that's a very sound approach, and I think it's definitely worth a try. I don't know if it'll succeed, but I think it's definitely worth a try, and at least you can show the baby mama or baby father, you can show your partner that, hey, I'm willing to work with everyone involved to so that this goes smoothly. Now, I do want to ask you, have you had any negative experiences dealing with baby mamas with men that you have dated while being, in your dating
Mhm.
phase and divorce phase? I'm curious about that and how that's affected you or the relationship.
Nothing stands out. I don't think so because either they were cool with their other person. Now, I'm gonna tell you something that has lifted its head. I have dealt with someone who still had feelings for the baby's mother.
Uh-oh.
And that created an issue for me. So it wasn't her, it was him. He was trying to move forward, but really had not dealt with his final, wrap up with things. And I was just like, no, you're not going to make me be a part of this. Like, you still are going back and forth in your own mind. You haven't come out yet. You shouldn't even be dating somebody, and I'm not going to do this with you because you still have feelings for her. You still have stuff that is unresolved with her. You're not putting me in the middle of that foolishness. So I have had that to happen, which is crazy. It was not the baby's mama. It was the daddy that I was dating. That was the issue.
Oh man, yeah, that's wild. And that definitely is a big red flag in my opinion. I have run into scenarios where the woman, right, and the
Mhm.
baby daddy, they were not together, but they were still sleeping together. I've met a couple of women that confessed that to me, that that was who they were, rubbing in the sheets with. Because, and I always ask, okay, how does that work? And you're out here trying to date. And listen, I think we've done shows about friends with benefits. We've done shows, about, bedroom stuff and all that. And
Mhm.
the common denominator with that answer was that number one, this person knows them, right? So at least they feel some sort of rapport and chemistry, obviously. And number two, they are trying to be careful of who they go out and spend their time with and who they're intimate with.
Mhm.
And obviously it's just easier because it's the father of the child, so worst case scenario, it's the child's father anyway, so you don't expect that you're putting your child at risk by doing so. However, for the whole dating and trying to enter a serious relationship, that to me, I feel is very, very harmful and detrimental. And truth be told, I walked away from both of those situations because that to me didn't make any sense on any planet.
No, absolutely not. And it's just like, you know, I know closure is what we all want. And, we've talked about this in, our sessions with Luce about uh, how do you get closure? Well, you don't always get that. And so when a person is still looking for that, but they can't seem to find it and it's still torturing them, they're not ready. They're not ready for something new. They're not ready to move forward. They're still dealing with the ghost of relationships past. And
Okay,
I'm,
Matthew McConaughey.
Dickens didn't even know he was giving us the lead into a new scenario. But I'm just like, you're not ready. You're not ready. And I'm not ready to deal with you're not being ready. And so now if you know, I'm talking to somebody a little more seriously again now, but I'm like, are you good? Like, are you sure that this is a closed chapter in your life? Because if it isn't, you need to take time to do that, and maybe I'll still be here. But if it isn't, I'm definitely out because, like, you're not even all the way in with your foot still in that door. So I think that's something that you really do need to have good conversation around as you're building, your dating network with somebody. What's the health of that relationship? Because the person really does. I think you have the right to know if you're dealing with somebody psycho ex or not, because that can be dangerous. And a lot of times it could be, property damage, damage to you, harassment on the internet, harassment at a job. And again, I know if some people want to move forward, but the ex doesn't want to let them go. But if you haven't really gotten that situation contained, that's very unfair to bring somebody else into that kind of mess. Uh,
Oh, absolutely. That's why when I'm on a date, and when I'm in the early stages of trying to, get, more acquainted with the woman, I always ask, how long have you been single? And what's the deal with your ex? Does he live here? Is he moved out? Is he on his own? All those things. I want to know all those little things so that I have a better idea of what I'm walking into. Because believe it or not, apparently living with your ex is a thing nowadays. Like there's people out here that are not together, but they're still living together. Make that make sense to me.
well, I'm gonna tell you, the price of I'm not gonna throw stones if you got something, a good setup with your situation because this rent is ridiculous out here. Mortgages and rent are out of the. That's what doesn't make sense on the planet. But different strokes for different folks. But again, being aware and making sure everybody knows, even if the other person is, cool and doesn't mind talking to you, mind you, hopefully they're not saying something different when you walk off and, go to a different room and they're saying something real different to the other person, like, oh, I'm working on getting us back together, so you won't be here long. Saying something slick like that to me when they walk out the room, then we really do have a problem. But trying to make ends meet, sometimes you got to do what you got to do, but different strokes for different folks. I think the other end of this, as we wrap this up, is, what does a blended family look like in dating now? And, it used to be, um, like kind of awkward and not very fluid, but in a lot of cases now, people, based on their maturity and, there's so many more blended families now just by default, with the divorce rate being what it is. Not to mention people who were just single and, oops, we had a baby, but we're not together. Chances are you're going to have somebody in your life at some point in your dating that has, an ex, or at least they have an attached other parent that they're going to be co-parenting with. And I think that's one of those things that you're going to have to really realize at some point. The odds are not going to be in your favor. We're about to be upon May 4th, and may it be with you. But when it comes to this whole, can you find somebody who is single, who doesn't have children, who, you know, doesn't have a crazy ex, with that person? Like the odds are very slim sometimes. So, where is the cutoff though? Like, where do I draw the line as far as who I'm going to deal with in terms of your ex and mine? So,
It's definitely, it's
you're lucky if
definitely
you get me. you know, my ex is going to be pretty cool, but everybody doesn't have that situation. You know what I mean?
No, I agree, and it's definitely. I think it usually tends to be a more tensious, a more awkward, rocky situation, at least in the beginning. But also as an individual, right? As the parent, you need to be aware of, okay, I know what my baby mama or my baby daddy is like, and I need to get ahead of this, so that way you're preparing that person that, hey, I am out here dating. And
Yeah.
I need you to honor this, and this is how we're going to conduct ourselves, just like I'm going to respect you when you are out here on a date or whatever, and I'm not going to interfere or, show out or make you look bad, just like I expect you to do the
Mhm.
same for me with the same token of appreciation. So I think it's important to, number one, have these tough conversations pretty early on. Number two, establish some sort of code, some sort of boundary, etc. And number three, let the person know that you are interested in, hey, this is what it is. This is all it is. These are the expectations. And if you're cool and you can handle that, or you think that you're up for it, then let's keep it moving.
Mhm.
And if not, then I completely understand. And obviously off we go on our separate ways if it's just not going to work out, or if it's just not your cup of tea.
I love it. I love it. Like we always say, we could have turned this show into uh, dating communications because that's exactly what I feel like it always comes to the root of communicate, 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 over communicate if you need to.
Yeah,
Um,
and I think it's important to get in front of it because you don't want to wait till you're in love with this man or woman and then you blindside them with, oh yeah, by the way, my baby daddy or baby mama is a little low key psycho, so FYI, be on the lookout.
that
What?
part. That part.
Wait a minute, time out. You mean after you threw all this love and all this hot sex and all this cooking on me, now you gonna hit me with the psycho baby daddy
You
that's
get
about
the
to
hook
catch a
first.
case?
Yeah. But anyway, great topic again. Thank you everyone who participated in the conversation. If you have topic ideas or want to contribute or continue contributing to any of the shows that we have already out there, you can find us now on YouTube at the Relationship Cycle with Jorge and Nelsa, or you can find us on Spotify or other podcast outlets, as well as our website, therelationshipcycle.com. Until next time, though, Poppy.
Buenas noches, good people.